Mulinar saying of the CCP Select Committee, saying that the Chinese, or rather Taiwanese, I apologize, the Taiwanese Strait matters now more than ever. Why is that so critical right now?
Well, so I think we have a moral responsibility. We have a country with roughly 23 million people. I think Taiwan has. They want democracy. They want liberty. They want their own Bill of Rights like we have. And they don't want to be under Chinese communist dictatorship. And I think America stands by people who want freedom. And Taiwan's a success story. If you see that their democracy is working, their free markets are working, they're much more wealthier per person than they are in communist China. They have created vast amounts of wealth, and it's a success story that all freedom-loving people can be proud of. And so what we want to do is ensure that Taiwan gets to dictate its future and not under threat or bullying from communist China. And that means we got to ensure that the right weapons are in Taiwan, that we have, that the communist China knows that we have a commitment to Taiwan. And more than anything, the number one goal for America should be to deter a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. And you do that by standing with the Taiwanese and ensure that Taiwan has the right weapons at their disposal.
Well, along that same line, Congressman, we've got the State Department saying, quote, at a time when the United States is working harder than ever to prevent nuclear proliferation, China is doing the opposite. How important is it to keep our eyes on China as the biggest threat to America?
Well, China is definitely the long-term threat. They are, interestingly enough, though, they're going backwards compared to the United States economically. We're surpassing them right now. There was a period of time where we thought, oh, given 10 more years, they're gonna have an economy bigger than our country. That hasn't borne out in the last 3 or 4 years. And their population is quickly decreasing because of the one child policy that China had for decades. Those decisions have caught up with them. And they're gonna go under 1 billion people in the decades to come, and they're gonna have an aging population. So I see a country that's struggling. They're not the 10-foot giant that I think many people see China as today. They're not. They have their own big struggles. But that all said, they are the long-term threat. But really, it's Russia that is the short-term threat because they're acting out violently.
Representative Don Bacon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Actually, get
Sanchez's office said it was treating Trump's statements as business as usual, and it didn't intend to change the, quote, excellent relations it enjoyed with Washington.
Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez later said he had a very cordial conversation with President Trump. The two discussed the FIFA World Cup and golf, but not defense spending. Another warning for Americans traveling to China. The U.S. Embassy in China has issued what appears to be its 10th travel warning in the past 30 days. It cautions that even minor legal issues could lead to detention, imprisonment, or being barred from leaving the country. The latest alert, issued Wednesday, warns U.S. citizens they can be punished for breaking local laws, even unintentionally. The embassy says anyone under investigation could face an exit ban, meaning they may not be allowed to leave China until the case is resolved. It also warns that some detentions and investigations could last months or even years. The message is the latest in a series of warnings from U.S. officials about the risks Americans may face in China. The State Department previously warned that Beijing can enforce laws unpredictably, including using exit bans that Americans may only discover when they try to leave. The warnings come as tensions between Washington and Beijing remain high. U.S. officials say Americans, business people, and others with ties to the United States may face increased scrutiny in China. China sentenced a former official to death over a record bribery case. Yang Youling was accused of taking more than $300 million in bribes, equivalent to $25,000 a day. Yang served as executive deputy director of the Economic and Technological Development Zone in Nanjing. While it's not a particularly high-ranking position, roughly comparable to a deputy director of economic development for a U.S. city, it still gave him influence over construction contracts, land transfers, and financing. That influence allowed him to collect millions in bribes. Young has a strong connection in the U.S. In 2001, his wife and daughter obtained U.S. citizenship. This is a common pattern among Chinese officials. They remain in China earning money, while their spouses and children move abroad, often to secure assets. There is no evidence showing how Young's daughter obtained U.S. citizenship. However, some Chinese officials have taken advantage of birthright citizenship by having children born in the United States. After the U.S. Supreme Court ruled last month to uphold birthright citizenship, President Trump congratulated China's leader, Xi Jinping. A senior Taiwan official sending out a serious warning to the West. She said Beijing is turning up the heat on Taiwan, sending ships to claim jurisdiction in waters near the island. But the danger is the Chinese regime is moving slowly, testing limits little by little. So by the time the international community realizes the severity of the situation, it could already be too late. Here's Kwang Bi-ling, who heads Taiwan's Coast Guard.
If an authoritarian country does not change the status quo through a one-off military action, but instead advances a little bit each day, increasing Coast Guard activity today, expanding military exercises tomorrow, conducting so-called law enforcement inspections of commercial shipping the day after, and then in the next step, interfering with our undersea cables, the maritime shipping order, or information systems, then we have to ask, from which day can we say that the status quo has already been changed?
She lays out the biggest risks of Beijing's gray zone tactics.
Each individual operation may not appear to trigger an international crisis. With each increase in pressure, we may think that Beijing's action hasn't met the threshold of war. But when a series of actions accumulate, it may create an entirely new status quo.
Guan's warning comes after a series of actions from Beijing in recent months. It started with Chinese Coast Guard ships entering waters near Kinmen, a Taiwan-controlled island located just over a mile from China. After being expelled, the Chinese ships returned a few days later, this time entering waters near the Pratas Islands, an atoll southwest of Taiwan. Days later, Beijing sent 4 ships to waters east of Taiwan, saying it's carrying out a special operation. Here's what a Chinese Coast Guard told Taiwan Coast Guard personnel.
Both Taiwan and mainland belong to one China. These waters are under China's jurisdiction.
Taiwan's Coast Guard pushed back.
China does not have any sovereignty in waters east of Taiwan. You have violated international law by entering our waters without permission. Please turn around immediately and leave our waters at once.
Things escalated the following day. 5 Chinese ships claimed jurisdiction over waters near Taiwan. They questioned 3 commercial ships passing near the island about their point of origin and destination. And it didn't stop there. Earlier this month, China's Coast Guard announced a new law enforcement patrol in waters east of Taiwan, claiming the area falls under China's jurisdiction. Taiwan rejected the claim, saying the Chinese regime has no sovereignty over waters east of Taiwan. It's worth noting that while Beijing sends military jets near Taiwan's western airspace on a daily basis, it's extremely rare for Chinese ships to operate east of the island. The Taiwan official warned of the consequences of Beijing's boiling frog strategy.
Shipping companies may start adjusting while insurers and investors recalculate risks. Frontline law enforcement personnel will come under greater pressure, and the international community will gradually get used to situations that weren't normal to begin with. Because time and again, they think each incident falls short of a crisis. In the end, we may suddenly find out that even though no decisive war had broken out on any particular day, yet the original status quo no longer exists.
Gwen 的印太地区的，我们讲咽喉水道，部署了这个所谓的固态水下监听阵列哈，一个宫古海峡跟大隅海峡，那要监控什么东西？监控这个中共的东海舰队如何出第一岛链了。这个地方就是巴士海峡了，很关键啊，巴士海峡，这个地方是中共的潜舰要进入西太平洋或者是南海地区的必经之路。那么你要发射或者进行所谓的核潜艇的这个攻击的话，这个地方本身是你的必经之路。美国早已在这个咽喉的水道部署了所谓的固态水下监听阵列嘛，哈，完全就收集到你的情报。还有另外一个就是台湾东部海域， 海沟6000公尺啊，长这个航母最佳的一个地点，中共虎视眈眈。处心积虑一直要夺取我们的东部海域，那个海域本身是它的核潜艇到这边，然后作为一个基地发射台，然后对日本跟美国进行远程打击的最佳的位置，甚至是唯一的一个位置嘛。美国早已经知道了，啊，在这边部署了我们刚刚所讲的这个收拾这个系统，
对它的潜舰能不能活着经过2个海峡都很难讲，在战时的时候。
对，你在船坞里面。不管你躲得多深嘛，你除非你就放在那边不启动，你只要一启动，引擎一启动，不管你是柴油的还是这个核子动力的，一定会有声音嘛。万物都移动就会有声音，启动就会有声音，这个声音马上就被美国捕捉到了。所以我们简单来讲啊，就中共这个他想要进行一种战略讹诈或者战略的这个威慑等等，其实与其说是想要打假球。不如说是把球打到界外去了，所以不是战略威吓，根本就是战略的暴露，野人献曝的暴露。
然后台湾又加码，帮他暴露更多，从海面上发射。好了，节目最后我们请老师用1分钟总结今天的讨论。
好的，我们今天讨论2个问题嘛，一个就是我们的好朋友石板民夫在台中遭到这个中共派来的暴徒。袭击等等，我要讲3件事情。第一个就是，这绝对不是一个普通的一个伤害事件，这是中共有预谋性的，我把它称之为极权主义的流氓恐怖主义。我们必须要升高到国安层级，运用反渗透法、国安法还有刑法的相关的条文，延长羁押，彻底调查，从重量刑。这是我对这个问题的看法。第二个就是我们谈到了，就是中共发射嘛发射这一个模拟弹头模拟核子弹头，在南太平洋地区进行这个军演。我们最近的情况发现，它是潜艇身上在海面发射，那问题就会完全不一样了就本来是一副大装的歌舞剧，后来发现其实是演个野台戏所以这个剧本就不一样。可见它有2套剧本，一个剧本是拿来骗人的，一个剧本本身是谨慎的在操演的我认为最终的结果对中共来讲，我会造成一种叫安全困境的自我实现。你本来你很怕自己不安全，所以你的扩张军备，然后你的这个战略讹诈等等的，反而引起邻国认为你就是肯定你的侵略的本质，于是我提高我的军备，提高对你反制的力量，结果你自己变成是一个怎么样？变成这个最不安全的人那么最后我想补充一点对于这个石板民夫遇袭这个事件，我在这里要引述一个德国哲学家，叫西欧多阿多诺他讲过一句名言，他说在维斯豪辛监狱以后。维斯豪辛是什么东西呢？是2战时期纳粹最大的犹太人集中营。
对，
他说在维斯豪辛之后，写诗是野蛮的好，我解释一下在石板民夫事件之后，沉默而不谴责暴力也是野蛮的。所以现在哪一个方面在谴责暴力，哪一个方面对这个事情静默无声，我们大家都看得很清楚所以我在这里容我不客气的来讲，我们台湾的在野党叫做野蛮的在野党，或者是暴力的共犯所以对这件事情，我们有个非常吊诡的一个结局，就是说，中共派人来打人这件事情，本来是想对于反共知识分子或是反共的这个评论家对他们进行寒蝉效应。可是各位可以看到反而是对于台湾的在野党造成了寒蝉效应。